Hello, and welcome to today's review of The Spy Who Dumped Me. This film stars Mila Kunis and Kate McKinnon and was released theatrically on August 3rd, 2018 and released on home media on October 30th, 2018. Mila Kunis plays the main character Aubrey, who is dumped by Justin Theroux's spy Drew. Kate McKinnon plays Aubrey's best friend Morgan, which has a running joke throughout the film as her last name is Freeman. Yes, Morgan Freeman. And they state that she never has a problem getting a hotel reservation with her name. The final character is a spy by the name of Sebastian Henshaw, who is played by Sam, and I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong here, but I believe it's pronounced Hughan. This film is essentially an action comedy. Mila Kunis and Kate McKinnon have this connection with each other, this comfortability with each other that is shown throughout the film as you feel that most of the dialogue between the two is not scripted, that it's like right off the top of the cuff. Unfortunately, not a lot of the comedy lands for me. There are a few times that I laughed, but most of it was from a chase scene, and it turned out to be from the cabbie that made me laugh more than McKinnon or Kunis. As for the action, it's a hard R film, so there's a lot of blood, there's just a lot of action, and it looked like your typical, I don't want to say typical 90s action film, because it really isn't. It does have a lot of modern day sensibility with their action, but it was very bloody, very graphic, and it was unexpected how much action was in it for the fact that this film is a comedy. With the type of action that is in it, there was one thing that really did surprise me that I didn't anticipate, and that was full frontal male nudity. I knew this film was rated R, but I didn't realize how rated R this film was going to be. I mean, you see everything from multiple angles of one guy, and you can tell that's where they put their rated R mark on, was right there in that one scene. And that's not to mention the language that's used. There is a lot of well, F-bombs for one. I mean, it is rated R, and even PG-13 films get one drop of the F-bomb. And language doesn't typically bother me in films, but it seems like here they try to use it for comedic effect, and it just didn't hit the mark. When we're talking about hitting the mark with things like the language and the performances, I mean, they weren't bad. They weren't leaning into satire or anything like that with overacting or anything like that. It just wasn't really particularly good acting. It's on par for what I would expect out of a film like this, but it didn't shock and awe me from an acting standpoint. As the story progresses, we get a lot of instances where Audrey runs into people who knew her boyfriend, the spy Drew, better than she did, and they do a lot of cutbacks and flashbacks essentially of instances that Audrey remembers, but from a different perspective, from the outside perspective, and how he was always being a spy, even though she didn't realize it. And while it serves to fill in the backstory of Drew, it kind of makes the story a little disjointed, and I had trouble following along sometimes, especially the first time, when my comment to myself was, how did we get here? This guy's dead. It was just very difficult to follow through and follow along. Overall, I would put this film somewhere kind of in the middle of the range. It's nowhere near my top 10 list of this year's releases, but it's nowhere, it's not the last one. It's not the dead bottom either. The performances are alright, they're not standout and spectacular. Mila Kunis, and I can think of one performance off the top of my head immediately that she did a better job in. Now, granted, it wasn't a comedy, but Black Swan, she put a lot better performance in. And if you want to stick with comedy, she did a lot better in Bad Moms as well. This is definitely not a film that I would recommend for anyone under the age of 17, not with the full graphic nudity and the intense violence. With that said, adults might enjoy it, but I think you would have to be a fan of Mila Kunis or Kate McKinnon, and as the comedy just doesn't hit, it's one that can be skipped. With that said, if you do see it, hit me up in the comments below and let me know what you thought. And until next time, have a great night.